Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Gamecock Central Radio. Emerson Phillips with Wes Mitchell to talk about South Carolina's upset win over Tennessee on Saturday night. Wes, all in all, just a team win for South Carolina. There are a lot of individual performances that we're going to talk about today, but it really was a true team win, and the fans chipped in as well. Wes, great atmosphere at Williams-Brice Saturday night, and what a lot of people are calling a signature win for Will Muschamp in his first year at South Carolina.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. I think the maybe the first marquee win of the Muschamp era. I think, I don't know, man. In a lot of ways, I feel like the Will Muschamp era began on Saturday night. You know, these guys have shown they can recruit. You know, and I think, you know, we've tried, at least on the site and here on you know, the podcast, to sort of keep it real. The expectations sort of are what they are at this time. You know, I don't think you could fault this staff, you know, if Carolina just won, you know, 4 or 5 games this year. But, you know, I think, you know, even if they didn't have that big upset. But now, to do what they did Saturday, to get a big upset win over Tennessee, they were 2-touchdown underdogs. To, you know, that this win is big on about 100 different levels because, you know, A, it gets you in position to go bowling, potentially. B, you had a bunch of recruits on campus. C, even the recruits that weren't there, a win like that shows progress from a program. And, you know, not only do they see that, but they see all these true freshmen playing. They see a quarterback. If you're a skill guy, you see a quarterback in Jake Bentley who can get the football to you. So, you know, I think on so many levels, we've all often termed this season year zero, but I think on so many different levels, I feel like the Muschamp era finally, you know, I think it truly began on Saturday, and you know, I'm sure we'll hit it all week long, but I think Muschamp and this staff and this team now has their toughest test of the entire season this week, because Missouri may not be a good team, but we all know college football, and we all know the ebbs and flows of a season in college football, and we all know all these young players are going to be in class all week long, hearing how great they are all of a sudden. So, to me, the toughest test for this staff and this team of the entire football season is this week. Bring the same intensity to Williams-Brice Stadium Saturday against Missouri as they brought this past week against Tennessee, because this is the game that puts them in position to go bowling. They needed to steal it from Tennessee to get in the position, but if they do this, beat Missouri, all they have to do is beat Western Carolina, and they are going bowling in year one. So this, you know, I can't stress it enough to the fan base. Missouri's not going to just show up and lose, man. I mean, this is going to be a tough test for South Carolina at Williams-Brice Stadium this week.
No doubt it will be. 4 o'clock kickoff this Saturday. South Carolina hosting Missouri. Missouri got whipped by Kentucky this weekend, and they fell to Middle Tennessee last weekend. So they are struggling coming into Columbia, but it will be another tough SEC battle. And no question that, you know, Missouri should be amply motivated for this ball game. They're trying to get their season turned around. So you make an interesting point, Wes. A real challenge for the Gamecocks, even though on paper, you know, Missouri doesn't look real good right now. Certainly they're not playing well coming into this game, but a real challenge for the Gamecocks in that they're going to have to get the emotion level back up for Missouri, and it may be hard to do that. You know, certainly this is potentially a possible letdown game, and you know the Gamecocks don't want to let what they accomplished against Tennessee get away from them in this game against Missouri. You have to beat Missouri to validate the win over Tennessee, and if you get the win over Missouri, you get to 5 wins, and a bowl trip looks like a real possibility.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know this win is big, like I said, on multiple levels. And, you know, you look at Tennessee, the fact this is the team that many thought was going to be the SEC East champion. And even though they've lost a couple of games leading into this past weekend, they were still very much in position to be the SEC East champion. And they have absolutely imploded, it seems like. You've got a lot of rumors come out of Knoxville. We'll find out in the next, you know, maybe 24 hours how many of them are true. But a lot of rumors about guys potentially leaving. And, Tennessee and South Carolina, interestingly enough, have sort of knocked heads on the recruiting trail in this class as well. So, you look at an SEC East school that South Carolina is going to battle with on a year-to-year basis, and that ultimately you're sort of battling for status in the East. And to me, if you're going to sort of build a program and accelerate the building of a program and get big-time players, you need a sort of marquee signature win or two that nobody expects. So this did that for them. This sort of evens out the Kentucky loss, which Kentucky, what is Kentucky now, 4-2 in the SEC? I mean, their record is much better than we expected, but I think South Carolina could have beaten Kentucky. That was very clear to me. So this sort of evens that out. And there was a little bit of, call it karmic justice or poetic justice to South Carolina sort of ruining Tennessee's East championship chances. I mean, you look, I was thinking the last 4 years, Emerson, 2012, that's 4 years ago, almost to the day, is when you had the Lattimore injury. South Carolina won that game, but obviously devastating for the program and for Marcus Lattimore on that day. 2013, very similar to this year, but the roles reversed. South Carolina goes to Knoxville. South Carolina probably has the best team in the East that year and loses to Tennessee on the last-second field goal. 2014 is when we were really starting to see the slide of the Steve Spurrier era at South Carolina. South Carolina's up 14 late, finds a way to lose the game. Even came down to a 50-plus yard field goal from Elliott Fry trying to tie the game, which obviously is the same thing that Tennessee had at the end of this game. And then, of course, last year, South Carolina was driving to win late in the game, and Darrell Adams fumbled. So there was it just sort of made sense for South Carolina. It just sort of worked for South Carolina to be the ones to knock off Tennessee and ruin their chances. There's so many different sort of ways that South Carolina, I think, owed Tennessee one.
Yeah, let's look back on this Tennessee win for South Carolina Saturday night, 24-21 the final. And, Wes, I'd like to start with the defense. Ulrich Jones led the team in tackles. Jamarcus King had a huge game with 2 more interceptions. And the Gamecock defense did a really good job on Tennessee quarterback Josh Dobbs, who had a field day against the Gamecocks the last 2 meetings. Dobbs completed less than 50% of his passes. He was 12 of 26 for just 161 yards. Had 1 touchdown. He was sacked twice and threw the 2 picks. King had both interceptions for the Gamecock defense. And, Carolina did a good job against the Tennessee ground game as well. Hurd, the top rusher for Tennessee coming into the ball game, 8 carries for just 16 yards, and Tennessee averaged 3.7 yards per carry on 37 totes in this ball game. Best effort of the season by the Gamecock defense, Wes.
Yeah, I mean, what more can we say about the way this defense just sort of battles and hangs in there and fights? And they're certainly not deep by any means. And that depth got tested even more by the Chris Lamont's ejection. Then, of course, DJ Smith is kicked out of the game as well for, a targeting call. I mean, the way this defense just sort of battles. I mean, and they're not even as a group. I'm trying to think of the way to say this because it sounds like an insult, but when you look at the way they're playing, it's really not. They're not as naturally talented, as a lot of SEC defenses out there. But right now, they are playing smart. They're playing above their heads. They're playing confidently, and I think confidence. And I'm not talking about false confidence. Anybody can show false confidence, but true confidence goes a long way for a team. And this group, this defense, just looks so confident out there to me. So I'm, I think you have to be happy for this group of kids because they have been so beat up the last couple of years, and rightfully so. They've not played well, but they've been so beat up. Now you see the new staff comes in. 3rd scheme in 3 seasons. That can't be easy to learn. but they're just gradually, consistently getting better. They fight for every yard, or they fight. They make an opponent fight for every yard, I should say. And then you got this kid, Jamarcus King, man. I mean, the way he has played as the year has gone on has just been incredible. And I think he's absolutely making a case to be all SEC at this point if he can keep this up, because to me, he is a big reason why this defense has improved the way that it has. And they're out there playing. I mean, this secondary is playing without a net, man. They have no depth at all. These kids are playing pretty much the entire game. I think it speaks to the strength and conditioning program that they're able to hang in there. And you know what? I think we need to throw a game ball at a guy who doesn't get mentioned often, is Stephen Montack. This is a kid that came in late to the class. He was a late addition. He got here like when fall camp was starting. Didn't get to go through the summer, and he to give a shout out to Beckham, one of our moderators, a friend of mine. Michael said that Montauk has basically been the Swiss Army knife of the secondary, and I think that's a great way to put it. This kid just came in. He has played some cornerback, some nickelback, and some safety, and it's just been out of the fact that he's absolutely had to, and he's held his own. He had a pass breakup. He had a nice tackle on the perimeter on a sweep from Tennessee. So these guys, I think, they've bought in to Travaris Robinson and Will Muschamp's style of defense. And, when South Carolina is good, they're generally pretty darn good on defense. So that, to me, this looks like a typical what you expect from a South Carolina defense.
All right, King had 2 more interceptions to run his season total to 3. He and Chris Lamons lead the Gamecocks with 3 picks. Gamecock defense now has 10 interceptions this year, and Lamons and King currently in the top 5, actually tied for 3rd in the SEC with those 3 picks each. So King had a huge game. Wes, we're going to talk more about defensive back problems for the Gamecocks. Lamons ejected for fighting, as you mentioned. He will have to sit out the Missouri game this weekend. And DJ Smith ejected for targeting, a very questionable targeting call that will force him to sit out the first half of the Missouri game on Saturday. So a Gamecock defensive back's already thin. Coming into the season are going to be a lot thinner for Missouri Saturday.
Yeah, they will be. And that's just the hand they've been dealt at this point. But like I said, man, you have to give them credit. They keep battling, they keep fighting, and I don't know as far as that targeting call is. I don't know what DJ Smith is supposed to do, because he took the brunt of the force on that play. So
yeah, he pulled up, Wes.
Yeah, I don't know what he's supposed to do. So, and I get why that call is in place. We all know it's because of player safety, but what is he supposed to do? I don't know. So that one, and now he has to miss. I mean, you have these replays in place to try to make sure that they're fixed, but I don't know. I just don't know what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, tough hand for the Gamecocks going into the Missouri game. Maybe Stephen Montauk plays an even bigger role for the Gamecock secondary this week. We'll talk more about that as we move through the week and get ready for Missouri. But, Wes, I want to go back to the Tennessee win here, and let's talk about the offense a little bit. One of the things that stood out for me was the poise of Jake Bentley, the freshman quarterback, making just his first ever start against an SEC opponent, facing a fierce pass rush. Wes, he was sacked 6 times. He suffered 4 additional quarterback hits. Tennessee brought pressure. They wanted to get to him. They wanted to try to rattle him early, and Bentley withstood it all, completed 15 of 20 passes, 75% on the day for 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the pass protection was not good, Wes, but Bentley stood in there, took his licks, and made plays when he had to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, in some of those pass protection issues, Muschamp said were not necessarily on the offensive line. Some of it is scheme. Some of it is you have to maybe get out of a certain play and into a different one, or make a check at the line. And I think sometimes Bentley, maybe he's going to have to get out of there a little bit quicker or step up a little bit quicker. But golly, man, the poise of this kid to be a freshman is just off the charts. And I think his ability to operate with defenders around him and still keep his eyes downfield and make big throws, even though there's guys, at his feet and guys rolling him up. And then his ability to then put the ball in places, even when his guy is covered, he seems to just find a spot where it's more towards the receiver and away from the defender, where only his guy can make a play on the ball. I'm almost sometimes speechless at some of the things he can do, and you can tell he's been coached from such a young age, obviously being Bobby Bentley's son. Just his development as a true freshman is something to behold. So his passing ability is off the charts, and I've tried not to just overhype this guy because it's so easy to do so. But I've been watching and covering South Carolina football for a long time, but there's never been a freshman in my lifetime that is as far along as a passer as Jake Bentley is. So, and that makes you wonder what is he capable of after he gets more time under his belt. His receivers get more time on the field with him. Rico Dowdle steadily improving. And if the line can steadily get better as well, it just makes you wonder what Jake Bentley could possibly do during his time at South Carolina. And I think Bentley has been so poised and impressive, he's pretty much almost overshadowed the fact that Rico Dowdle is quickly becoming just an absolute threat in the running game as well.
No question. Dowdle, 27 carries for 128 yards, a short touchdown run in the game against Tennessee, 4.7 yards a carry for Rico Dowdle, the freshman from Asheville. So the Gamecocks, basically, Wes, South Carolina is now 2-0 with Bentley as the starting quarterback, and we've talked about it extensively. Just 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the fact that South Carolina was dead last in the country in scoring offense at 14 points a game, and the Gamecocks have basically doubled their offensive average, their scoring average, in the two games that Bentley has started. Carolina averaging about 27 points a ball game right now in the two games that Bentley has started. So a noticeable improvement offensively. Rico Dowdle's been a big part of that. A.J. Turner had 7 carries in the win over Tennessee on Saturday. David Williams had 3 carries. And, one thing you notice as well, Wes, something else we talked about a couple of weeks ago is that the Gamecocks in the first half of the season had difficulty getting the ball to Deebo Samuel and Brian Edwards on the outside consistently. Now, both of those two missed some time due to injury in the first half of the year. But now that both players are healthy and Jake Bentley's in there at quarterback, we're seeing the Gamecocks get a lot more productivity from the wide receiver position. Samuel caught 8 balls in the win over Tennessee. That's 2 weeks in a row with 8 receptions for Deebo Samuel. And Brian Edwards had 4 for 41, including a 17-yard TD. So a lot of areas of improvement offensively for South Carolina, and all of them were evident Saturday night.
Yeah, I thought, for one, when you get the ball to those guys and give them a shot, they're starting to prove to everyone that they can go make plays on the ball. And two, I think one of the things that brings to my mind is, I think one of our sort of maybe questions about the Muschamp era was his game management when you look back at Florida. And I thought something we've not maybe talked about on the board, since the Tennessee win, is that I thought Muschamp managed that game perfectly. And, you talk about some teams on a third down situation late in a game, will choose to basically just run the clock again and force a team to burn their timeout and then basically concede and punt the ball back, whereas other teams are more aggressive and decide to throw there. But, you would think with the conservative sort of, label that comes with Muschamp because of his time at Florida, that South Carolina would have maybe gone that direction. But instead they threw it. It was the right call, absolutely. They trusted their freshman quarterback and trusted their players, and he stood in there and delivered a strike. So, I thought that was one of the key decisions of the game, one of the key plays as well. And, they're still a bit conservative with this offense at times, out of necessity, I think. But when they really had to, I thought going for it on fourth down on the first drive of the game was the absolute right call. I saw some people were a little upset that they didn't. First of all, that they didn't, try to score at the end of the first half. And first of all, we had people throwing Roper under the bus for play calling there. And, I mean, before you get online and start just completely crushing the staff, you got to realize that's not the offensive the offensive coordinator doesn't make the decision just because he's the play caller. The head coach makes the decision at the end of a half if you're going to try to score, or there's pretty much three decisions. One is, let's run a conservative play, and if we get something on first down, you decide to go, to try to score. Two is just to try to score off the bat and be very aggressive, and three is just to run the clock out. So, and I thought with South Carolina up, not really great field position, freshman quarterback, they said, you know what, we don't need to screw this up. And I think I could make an argument for both sides, but, that's the head coach's call. So, that was a 50-50 deal, but I thought all the other decisions he made proved to be the right decisions, and that's a great sign. To me, that's a great sign for South Carolina's future under Will Muschamp.
All right, Jonathan Walton returned from injury, played well for the Gamecock defense. He had a sack and 2 tackles for loss. Darius English had a half a sack in this win over Tennessee Saturday night. English now has 7 sacks on the year, and that's tied for third in the SEC right now. So Darius English kind of quietly having a very solid year for the Gamecock defense. And a lot of positives coming out of this game, Wes, but the main thing now is to turn the attention to Missouri on Saturday. Got to get the emotion level back up and get ready to try to win a game at home. It'll be the 5th and final home game of this 5-game homestand for the Gamecocks. And, Wes, it's amazing how quickly things can turn around. 2 wins now the last 2 weeks, and the Gamecocks are thinking about a bowl trip at the end of the year.
Yeah, and like I said, man, I mean, we'll have Missouri coverage all week long, but this is the toughest test of the year right now. I firmly believe that. I think Missouri opened, as maybe a 5-point underdog. Have you seen the lines yet?
Yeah, it opened. Carolina was a 1.5-point favorite when it opened, and the line shot to 5 yesterday. So a lot of action on the Gamecocks very early in the week, whatever that's worth.
Yeah, and I've heard some places it's up to 6.5 now, which means I don't know that. I don't know what that means. That means a lot of people are all of a sudden. People seem to be suckers for the moment. I guess a lot of people are buying in to that South Carolina win. I think this is another battle for the Gamecocks, and we've seen this program historically, even after the huge win over Alabama in 2010, turn right back around and lose at Kentucky the next week. Luckily for South Carolina, this one is at home, but this is going to be another close game. Now, I will say, and like I said, we'll get into Missouri more later on in the week. They have some big numbers statistically, but a lot of their numbers have been against their out-of-conference opponents. Their numbers against SEC, offensive output against SEC has been very, very low compared to their out-of-conference stuff. They scored like 70 points on the team out of conference, put up huge numbers, and it kind of skews their average. So tough game for South Carolina, I think. Obviously, they're favored. It's at home. You would think they could win the game, but I think another close game this week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with South Carolina and Missouri. The Gamecocks appear to have all the momentum coming into this game. Missouri has none because they've lost their last 2 games, but still plenty of incentive for Missouri to bring their best effort on Saturday. We got a 4 o'clock kickoff at Williams-Brice. Wes, a lot of excitement around Gamecock football right now. It's amazing how quickly things can turn in just a couple of weeks. It just makes a huge difference when you got a playmaker back there under center, and the Gamecocks feel like they've got that right now with Jake Bentley. So Carolina's 4-4. The Gamecocks have won 2 in a row, and it will be Missouri Saturday at 4.
Absolutely, man. I guess we'll do this again tomorrow, huh?
All right, yeah, looking forward to it. Will Muschamp's pre-Missouri press conference coming up on Tuesday, and we'll have full coverage of that for you right here on Gamecock Central Radio. For Wes Mitchell, I'm Emerson Phillips. Thanks for joining us.